Good morning, and thank you for coming. I know it's a little bit early here on Wednesday here in Cannes. My name is Kevin, founder of ETHGas, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of Ethereum from a user experience perspective. Often the community is focused on a lot of the I'd call it like a developer tooling and the developer user experience. But what we're talking about today is really about enhancing the end user experience after the wallet. But I'll get into some of those details. So as I said, I'm Kevin, founder of ETHGas. For background, I have a TradFi background. I led financial engineering at Morgan Stanley for a number of years. Left, started a tech company with my wife, and then crypto was just calling me to come back into kind of like fintech, I guess that you can call it, or Web3. So the North Star that we're driven by is something which I think all of us would like to achieve at some point in the future. To some extent, Ethereum is an incredibly diverse network, but it is also very slow. And so to the extent that we could make it more real-time in nature would be wonderful. And secondly, to the extent that we could eliminate, broadly speaking, the gas experience, that would make it much more easier for kind of like your especially your retail type of user experience. And so I'll talk about those two today and talk about how we basically power these from happening. Now, gas is the economic fabric that binds blockchains together. It sits in between kind of the two counterparties, effectively the validators on one side of the equation who are providing that block space or who are proposing that block space. And on the other side, it is the end users. And so on the end user side, you have retail, you have institutional, you have searchers, you have roll-ups, oracles, and so forth. But gas is this like competitive environment where everyone competes for these scarce resources in a on-demand basis, or what I call like a spot market. And so this market, it doesn't really have much structure to it. And our thesis is that if you can provide structure to this market, you can achieve these huge unlocks for the broader ecosystem. And so the gas market, as most of us know, we think of it in terms of like gwei. The gas price goes up and down. And there are broadly two components to gas prices. One is the base fee, which we're more familiar with, and then there's the priority fees. And I'll get into a bit more detail here. The base fees, they move a little bit, but they are one of the single most volatile instruments anywhere across crypto. And so, ETH as an asset in terms of vol, it might trade at like 75% vol, or Bitcoin might be at like 60, 62%. But as you can see here, the base fees exhibit around a 2,000% annualized vol, in the sense that they are able to potentially go up about 12.5% every 12 seconds. And so when you kind of analyze that and look at the standard deviation, the volatility of it, it's quite volatile. But not in comparison to the priority fees. The priority fees could go from like 0 to extreme amounts. And so it actually doesn't make sense to measure these markets from a vol perspective because they're just, they're too volatile. But it's basically like taming and providing a structure behind these markets, which is what we're looking at today. And so on the left side, we'll talk about the priority fees on top and how we work to, again, provide some structure here so that we can achieve a real-time experience on Ethereum. And separately, the base fees on the left, we'll look at how if we can kind of tame or manage the base fees, we'll end up with like a somewhat gasless experience on Ethereum. And again, powered by ETHGas. So the current block building process, it's called PBS, Proposer Builder Separation. There's a common piece of software called MEV-Boost that many of the validators run to build blocks. We call this a spot auction. And the way this process works for those who may not understand is that you basically have users, any of those types of users I spoke about earlier, and they're basically submitting their transactions. If they're retail, you're submitting it through your wallet. But these transactions would then go to a mix of block builders, and they may not go to all of them. They'll just go to some. And to the average user, you don't really choose the block builder specifically that you want to take your transactions to. But block builders, for example, Titan Builder, Beaver, the Flashbots, which you may be more familiar with, they'll basically create these blocks, and then ultimately these relays would then help to propagate these blocks through the peer-to-peer network, and ultimately a validator would essentially like propose a block. But what happens in this process is that, your wallet, or if you're trading on Telegram, for example, with some of the Telegram bots, your transactions might go to one builder, someone else's transactions might go to another builder, but ultimately the validator can only choose one block at the end of the day. So are they going to choose builder one's blocks or builder two block? And so you have this fragmentation over exactly which orders or which blocks will fundamentally be proposed in that slot. And so this fragmentation leads to basically like less than optimal returns for the validator. And so to the extent that we can kind of unify some of this order flow into the block, then it creates a more certain experience for end users, as well as it maximizes the value to the validator. So given the uncertainty in here, we basically take this from another perspective. We're looking at Blockspace futures. So what we've done is we've gone out to the validators. There's just over 1 million validators with 32 ETH, and that may change now. But basically these validators can sell the Blockspace in advance. And so what you can do is you can pre-buy allocation in this Blockspace. And this is not too dissimilar from just like buying gas for your car, right? Instead of kind of like using gas on demand as a car, you buy a big chunk of it, put it in a gas tank. And so in this case, you can kind of reserve gas in advance. Now, let me switch across to a demo here. Okay, so this is our testnet, but it shows a more kind of vibrant market. And so what happens on the right side is you have what's called this look-ahead window. So within the next 64 blocks, slots, or 2 epochs, it's about 12.8 minutes. Within that window, there are validators who will sell their block space. So you can effectively buy the entire block and do something with it. Now, with us as an intermediary to this transaction, we have this block space available for anyone to buy. Now, someone could buy the entire block, or someone could just buy like a part of a block. And when you aggregate, everyone in this room, if we were to all buy portions of the block, I could sell some here, 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 and I could do this in 3 millisecond latency. And what that does is I'm effectively giving you guys, as an intermediary, I'm giving you a real-time experience to put your transactions in the block. And so if you guys were all to send me your transactions at, broadly the same time-ish, I can basically order those based on time of arrival or whatever it might be. But then I can give you this pre-confirmation to know that you will be guaranteed to be like in that specific slot. Now, being 50 slots in the future, you may not know what you want to do in 50 slots, but as these blocks roll down to like the next slot, then I can provide that guarantee. And if the validator doesn't put your transaction into the next slot, they get slashed or penalized, and you guys get compensated much more to the effect than the transaction value that you have. And so that's the general premise here, that as an intermediary, I can provide a real-time experience on the blockchain. Now, for someone who buys the block, you have a few choices. Again, you can buy a little piece, but this is largely an institutional market where people like to buy the entire block. So you buy this kind of empty barrel of gas, you can sell it back and forth, just trade it like a financial instrument. Secondly, you could actually just build the block. So because you kind of control that block, you can put all the transactions you want into that block as you like. But maybe you can't really maximize the value of that block, and so maybe you just want the top of the block. You want to do some SexDex arbitrage in between the centralized exchanges and DeFi. That's entirely up to you. And the rest of the block, you can basically delegate or sell off to the conventional block builders. Or there's a fourth case where you can do nothing with a block. If that's what you wanted to do, that's fine. You can pay for a block. There's some use cases, but we'll leave that for another time. So that's the general experience on the exchange. Now, switching gears now. So that was the real-time experience. And now we'll look at kind of the gasless initiative that we have in play. And so when we trade with a DEX, for example, actually, no, let's take a step back here. When you buy a coffee, you don't pay, $5 plus some variable amount of electricity cost, for that given day, right? And so, we're not accustomed to that experience in the real world, and hopefully we can get to that point in the digital world where we're not paying this variable amount. And so the broader initiative is to take what is conventionally a fixed, transaction fee. Maybe it's a DEX or it's a carry if it's like a lending type of protocol. Taking this fixed plus variable fee and converting it into just fixed fees. So that's the broader goal. But how do we get there? And so we're basically working with, among the top 20 protocols, I'd say 40% of them so far. We're launching this initiative quite soon. Basically, they're going to rebate your gas. And what's going to happen is that I'm going to go to protocol X and say, your users are spending $50,000 in gas. That protocol is going to rebate that gas back to us as an intermediary. This is a once-a-month process. It's not on demand. They'll rebate that amount to us once a month, as will many other protocols. And then from the end user experience, you can basically come to us and claim that gas back from multiple protocols, but in a single transaction. So it's a very gas-efficient way to basically rebate the gas back to the end user, because at least currently, it's quite expensive to do so via account abstraction and some of these other on-demand techniques. So yeah, we're about to kick that off shortly. And maybe I can actually show you a little bit here. So if you were a protocol and you wanted to participate in this, for example, we have this page here. I can share a link at the end. But basically, we help you to kind of estimate, like, what is that gas spend? And do you want to rebate all of the functions that people might do? Maybe you're a lending protocol, for example. You want to only rebate actions which add TVL versus removing TVL. So you basically come here, you'd add a contract, put your contract address in, and it'll pull up some information. But in the essence of time, I'll just switch to the next tab here. So this is ETHGas, actually. Now, it basically breaks the gas spend by function. By contract, by function, by the number of users, transactions, and it tells you that gas spend. And then as a protocol admin, effectively you can say, well, I only want to rebate 50% of this function, 100% of that function, and then boom, you basically just save it. And then to start, it's basically a manual process in between ourselves and these other protocols. The goal is to iron out the right user experience for this, and then put this into a trustless process, perhaps with zero-knowledge proofs. And so that's the admin or the protocol side of the equation. And this here would be the end user side of the equation. And so in this case here, this would be like a whale. Clearly, they've spent $1 million on gas. But they'd connect their wallet, and they'd simply just claim back the gas fees accordingly from each protocol. And so with this process, then basically as anyone using a protocol, we're basically socializing that gas spend. So at the time of purchase, you don't need to think like, well, what is the base fee? Is it too high? Is it too low? You can basically just go ahead with confidence and know that that gas fee is not kind of directly attributed to your specific transaction, but you'll get compensated accordingly. And so this enables us to, as I showed in the earlier slide, we can basically go back to the protocol, and they can then now say, well, our users, this is their behavior. We can now basically bake the cost of these transactions into the transaction fee and just have a fixed transaction fee going forward. So again, the goal is to remove the uncertainty and the variability of gas fees and just make it kind of baked into the protocol itself. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So just kind of wrapping up here, I guess I'd want to leave you with well, 3 words, which is, believe in something. On our side, our belief is that we can make Ethereum real time. And today we're doing it. About 1% of the network is now able to operate on a real-time basis. And we'll be working with protocols to enhance that user experience, where a price could update in real time on Ethereum. Secondly, there's the gasless experience. If that's something you feel that we need as a community, let's talk. And finally, as part of our incentive, we're putting $30 million towards this to either validators who would like to join us and provide the block space, to block builders, traders, or separately to protocols that want to join us on this gasless experience as well. And so with that, thank you for hearing me out this early morning in Cannes. That's where you can reach us. Thank you. And I guess I'll take questions if we have a few minutes. Yeah.
Thanks. Very interesting. I had two questions. One on the validator side. How does you mentioned that they get slashed if they don't commit to if they don't commit to.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, if they don't carry out what they committed to.
Yeah.
How does that work with ETHGas?
Sure.
And then the other question, or you want me to hold it?
No. I can take it. The first one is like, how does the slashing work? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Or
Okay.
what they stake.
I'll answer that
and so
one
on.
first.
Sure.
So basically, the validators post some amount of collateral. It could be 0 or it could be 1 to 10 ETH. It's kind of variable, and we approach it from a market-based perspective. Ideally, the more collateral they post, the more that traders should be willing to pay because they have more comfort in some sense. The slashing mechanism is handled off-chain currently. But there's mechanisms to get it on-chain. And it's only because we're starting with this low latency experience. And we eventually want to, it's the highest kind of driver of demand for this. But yeah, so the slashing happens off-chain, but we'll be moving it on-chain. There's a broader initiative called Fabric, which is kind of spearheading this and creating kind of like a community-based approach to unifying the endpoints. And the second question?
Yeah, thanks. Second question was, you said gasless, but it's not really gasless, right?
Correct.
They pay gas and then they
the initiative
claim
is
them back.
Again, well, we're trying to mimic more the real world where gas is like an industrial input. So like we think of gas from that industrial kind of production part, but from the end user experience, then we just kind of don't want them to think about gas, but they know it's there. Yeah. So we're not actually removing gas itself. It's just we're moving it maybe one step further into the background.
Okay. Do you see a future where you're going to be actually removing it from the user's experience entirely?
That's up to the wallets.
Yeah.
Well, it's a function of the wallets and kind of that end touch point. And so either through account abstraction or future versions of account abstraction, as a community, I think we'll get there, but we're not there quite yet. So this is an attempt to kind of like jumpstart that process and kind of put pressure on the wallets and the dev community to kind of figure this out from that last touch point. Yeah. We're providing the financial infrastructure to do so.
Anyone has a question?
Alrighty. Thank you, folks.